Welcome back to Perspectives. Now, we just got done hearing President Trump speaking at a campaign-style rally in Arizona. He mentioned a number of things during that speech, including a previous speech that he made about Afghanistan. Throughout the day today, reactions continued to roll down regarding the speech by President Trump that he gave on Monday night, laying out his administration's policy for Afghanistan going forward. Our senior Washington correspondent, Dan Raviv, has been monitoring those reactions all day today in Washington and filed this report.
Hi, Denise. We're trying to figure out exactly what is the new United States strategy in Afghanistan. President Donald Trump said that U.S. forces will attack and will kill terrorists, but he didn't say how many additional U.S. soldiers he'll be sending into Afghanistan. It's believed that the number is around 4,000, bringing the total of Americans in that country to 12,500. The Secretary of Defense, retired General James Mattis, refused to give a number. He said it depends on the needs and the requirements in Afghanistan. Another general said that additional American forces will be going in the coming days and weeks. Apparently, they'll have more of a green light to attack terrorists and other extremists wherever they might be. And there was a hint there could even be cross-border raids into Pakistan. As for the diplomatic side, America's Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said, "We are there," meaning Afghanistan, to facilitate and to make sure there's a pathway for reconciliation and peace talks.
I think the president was clear. This entire effort is intended to put pressure on the Taliban, to have the Taliban understand you will not win a battlefield victory. We may not win one, but neither will you. And so at some point, we have to come to the negotiating table and find a way to bring this to an end. Now, this is a regional approach, and part of why this effort took as long as it did is we chose not to just focus on Afghanistan, but we undertook a fairly comprehensive review of our relationships in Pakistan and our relationship with India. And we see this approach as requiring an integration of all three of those strategies and use Pakistan, India to also bring pressure to bear on the situation in Afghanistan.
Tillerson certainly was describing the possibility that the Taliban could be part of future talks. No date's been set or any particular target for negotiations, even as the Afghan government expressed delight that the United States is staying and keeping American troops in that country.
Today is a special day because a few hours ago the United States President delivered his speech. I hope that you have all heard his speech. His message was that after this, there is no limited time or conditions on the support for Afghanistan. America will stand with Afghanistan until the end.
Secretary of State Tillerson also spoke about North Korea. He said it's a positive sign that North Korea did not stage any missile attack on Guam or any further tests of its missiles or nuclear weapons, and that, according to Tillerson, could possibly open the way to dialogue sometime in the near future. As you can hear, that was America's Secretary of State sounding quite optimistic on both those issues, Afghanistan and North Korea. Back to you, Denise.
To discuss this all further, I'm now joined by Whitney Castle, a columnist for Foreign Policy. Whitney, thank you so much for being with us.
Sure, thank you for having me.
So looking at this policy speech by President Trump regarding Afghanistan, we heard Secretary Tillerson echoing these comments that it needs to be a regional effort involving perhaps India, Pakistan. What kind of reactions have we heard from those entities regarding this new strategy?
I don't think any of the reactions have been particularly surprising, nor is the idea of a regional strategy new. You know, both Presidents Obama and Bush articulated similar goals with regard to bringing in Afghanistan's neighbors and sort of making it a regional approach. The Pakistanis did weigh in today, both the Pakistani military and the foreign minister. The military did vehemently deny the accusation that Pakistan is harboring terrorists or insurgent groups on their soil. So this is a fairly predictable response from the Pakistani army and an indication that mere sort of tough words towards Pakistan is not probably going to change their behavior dramatically. The foreign minister, I think, took a slightly softer line and emphasized Pakistan's sacrifices in the war on terrorism and sort of all the efforts that Pakistan has put into the Afghan war since 9/11. That was something that was echoed by China actually today. So Pakistan being a little bit defensive and its allies coming to its defense as usual. The Indians expressed support, which was not surprising given the positive words that President Trump had for the Indians. I don't see anything wrong necessarily with expressing support for India's role, but there is a very fine line, of course, to be walked there between India and Pakistan, and not sort of ratcheting up tensions in an already very fraught bilateral relationship between those two.
Well, and as you pointed out, a lot of analysts have pointed to President Trump's comments saying that perhaps they will make the situation harder going further between India and Pakistan. Now, looking at another aspect of this equation, the Taliban. We heard the Afghan Taliban blasting President Trump's policy, saying if he wanted to end the war, he should pull out American troops from the country. Also, the Taliban saying that they would make Afghanistan a graveyard for American troops. Is this surprising in any ways, especially considering these comments we heard from President Trump saying that potentially a political settlement in the long run could include elements of the Taliban?
I don't think it's particularly surprising. President Trump's sort of entree, if you could call it that, to the Taliban in his speech was not new either. The Obama administration, in particular, made several attempts to sort of open the door to negotiation with the Taliban. The reality is, right now, the Taliban is negotiating from a position of strength, and they have no real incentive to negotiate with the U.S. or with the coalition or with the Afghan government, for that matter. They hold more territory than they have since 9/11, and they have every reason to believe, despite President Trump lifting the kind of artificial timeline that Obama had put on the troops that he sent in 2011, 2012, lifting that sort of artificial timeline, I think the Taliban still believe very strongly that they can wait out the United States and the coalition, and they really have no reason to come to the negotiating table right now.
Certainly. Well, as you said, a lot of comments that we heard from President Trump, many of which were not that surprising, but nonetheless, a new policy going forward. Whitney, thank you so much for joining us.